Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestle News 365. There's a ton of WWE news to go through today. There's always a ton of WWE news to go through, but what we're going to do, we're going to go through some of the major stories and talking points over the last 24 to 40 hours. Lord knows there is a lot of them, so let's get straight into the news stories. Firstly, let's talk about Becky Lynch. I think everyone is talking about Becky Lynch over the last 24 hours as Becky Lynch posts 6 photos from her first pregnancy photo shoot on her Instagram page. Now, since Becky Lynch stepped away from the WWE and went on maternity leave, the updates about Becky Lynch's pregnancy have been relatively scarce as the man has kept a low profile while being away from the WWE and the WWE Universe. However, yesterday afternoon, Becky Lynch made up for all of this lost time and she posted some photos from her first pregnancy photo shoot, and it must be said that the former Raw Women's Champion, SmackDown Women's Champion, the man looked absolutely incredible. She did look absolutely incredible. Lynch took to Instagram and posted 6 pictures from the photo shoot with the caption "Coming Soon" written there as well. Now obviously 3 of these photos feature her and her fiancé, fellow WWE superstar Seth Rollins. Now in terms of an update as to the due date of Becky Lynch, Dave Meltzer recently revealed on the Wrestling Observer Radio that Becky Lynch is expected to give birth in a couple of weeks, and Seth Rollins, when it comes to Seth Rollins news, Seth Rollins is scheduled to go on a hiatus from WWE after Survivor Series on Sunday. This is going to be his paternity leave and he's going to be spending some time with his fiancée and the mother of his child, Becky Lynch. Now, Seth Rollins taking some time off was the reason why WWE booked his feud with Rey Mysterio to end on last week's episode of SmackDown, with Murphy turning on the Friday Night Messiah and aligning himself with the Mysterio family. The company has also been wrapping up all TV angles featuring Seth Rollins before he goes home to spend some time with Lynch as they prepare for the birth of their first child. Now, in terms of a return date for Seth Rollins, he is expected to be back in the WWE by the first week of 2021. We'll have to wait and see on that. This is what Dave Meltzer mentioned on the Wrestling Observer radio show. He said, quote, "Becky Lynch is about to give birth within a week or two. That's why they blew off the Ray thing this week, and they're going to do Seth Rollins and Murphy match next week, and then Survivor Series, and probably after Survivor Series, maybe a week after, he will stick around. He's going to be probably gone until the first of the year, maybe. I don't know if there's a definite date, but that's out, and the story is out, and that story is true. So there's no updates of when we could see Becky Lynch backing WWE, and her sole focus, of course, right now is to give birth to their child, and absolutely that should be their prime focus. Pro wrestling fans, pro wrestling will always be there. Obviously, family comes first and your health comes first, so it's always about family and happiness first. So she is spending all of her time and focus, as is Seth Rollins, on their upcoming family. Now, Becky Lynch last appeared on Monday Night Raw on WWE television back in May, where she announced her pregnancy and relinquished the Raw Women's Championship, giving it to Asuka. Now, in terms of a Becky Lynch return date, WWE, by all accounts, hopes to have Becky Lynch in time for WrestleMania, but there is no timeline or timescale for her return to the company. We'll have to wait and see. What the most important thing right now is, of course, to congratulate Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch and wish them all the best and a healthy birth. Now, to be honest, when I saw this story yesterday, I was kind of unsure whether I should talk about it or not. Because I don't know, just talking about someone's personal life like that, talking about someone's pregnancy and that kind of deal, just, I don't know, it makes me a little bit uncomfortable. Like, it's their life, it's their news. I don't want to be one of those weird fans, you know what I mean? We see enough of that on social media. Lord knows we've seen enough of those horrifying stories online about that. I think even I see, the Sonya Deville case over the summer, but I even saw something with Deonna Purrazzo. I think this was in the last week or so, and she was like, "Don't be one of these fans." And this fan had sent a letter to her house, her personal address, asking her to sign these autographs, and it's very creepy. That level of fandom is so disturbing to me, so I was kind of unsure whether or not I should talk about it. Lord knows, of course, the internet, social media went absolutely crazy when Becky Lynch did post those images on Instagram, because we haven't heard really anything that much from Becky Lynch since she went on hiatus from WWE, since she went on maternity leave. We haven't really heard anything, and there's a lot of Becky Lynch stans out there, whatever they're called, and are very excited and interested to see what happens with Becky Lynch and Seth Rollins next. So of course the internet went crazy. There are a lot of weird people out there, though. Some of those comments, I mean, are frankly incredibly disturbing. In fairness, I think the majority of the comments from fans and people within the pro wrestling industry were very supportive and saying how great she looked. She did look great, and her and Seth Rollins looked great. And but like I said, I was unsure whether or not to talk about it because there are a lot of creepy fans. The reason why, in the end, I decided that we should probably talk about it here is one, obviously, like I said, it was news, and a lot of people are talking about it. And quite frankly, you know, Becky Lynch posted the photo shoot, the 6 photos, so I suppose they went public with it. And once you put that kind of those kind of images and that kind of information out into the public sphere, you kind of open yourself up for people to talk about it, and that's what we're doing here. But I want to sort of tread the line carefully because we should still respect their privacy. We absolutely should respect their privacy. I think pro wrestling fans, because we see someone on television every single week and they get so connected to them, like they think they know them, they think they know the character, but they don't actually know the real person behind the character. It's one of the unique things with pro wrestling, I suppose, is there is this real creepy level of fandom, I think especially with the female superstars, that you have to sort of be careful. But obviously Becky Lynch looked absolutely fantastic. She looked stunning. She looked healthy and happy, and I wish her all the best, and Seth Rollins, and hope they have a healthy and happy birth and welcome the first child to their family. So it's incredibly exciting for them, and it was exciting to see an update from Becky Lynch. Like I said, we haven't heard anything, and it was nice to receive an update as long as it's on their terms. Now, as Dave Meltzer mentioned, and as I mentioned in the report there, Seth Rollins is going to be having some time off after Survivor Series. They're wrapping up the Seth Rollins Mysterio storyline. Thank God. I mean, seriously, thank God they're wrapping up that storyline. Lord knows that has been going on for long enough. What's scary to me is that they're wrapping up this storyline with Seth Rollins and Rey Mysterio, but the only reason they're wrapping it up is because Seth Rollins is going on paternity leave. If he wasn't going on paternity leave, they would have carried this on. How long did they think this could run for? I mean, it jumped the shark a long time ago. I mean, a real long time ago. It's been going on for almost 2-3 months too long at this point. It really has. This started back in May. Back in May, Otis was a contender to actually become a Universal Champion because he just won the Money in the Bank briefcase. Look at him now. He's with Chad Gable going under some training program. That's how long ago that is. That's how much has changed in that period of time. And this Rey Mysterio-Seth Rollins feud has been going on for that long. I'm glad it's over. But the fact it took for Seth Rollins to go on paternity leave to actually stop that is insane. It's absolutely insane. Now, in terms of a Seth Rollins return time frame, Dave Meltzer says the start of the year. I think it's funny, and probably this video is going to seem like I'm really going in hard on Dave Meltzer, but people picked that up as news when it said, "Oh, it looks like he's going to be back at the." I would suppose he's going to be back at the start of the year. That's not news. That is Dave Meltzer's opinion. He has a real issue with trying to distinguish his opinion from actual factual news from sources. He's just said there, "Oh, maybe he'll be back at the first of the year, maybe after that, maybe a couple of weeks after that." That is just guesswork. That is, I might as well say that and say that's news, and it's not. So he's saying maybe the start of the next year. Obviously, he's going to be back before WrestleMania. So that's that. He'll be back in sometime in 2021. That's easier said. Why don't you just say that instead? Now, in terms of Becky Lynch, I've seen a lot of people saying, "Oh, she'll be back before WrestleMania." You know, I don't know. And I don't think realistically we should rush her. We shouldn't. She's giving birth, and Lord knows how taxing that is and what effect it can have on you. Okay, so people saying, "Oh, she'll be back for WrestleMania." I think people that think she's a shoo-in to be back for WrestleMania don't realise how taxing it is to give birth and what kind of responsibilities and toll that can take on you. If she's scheduled to give birth in a couple of weeks, like Dave Meltzer is saying, and WrestleMania is in April, you think that just giving up after, 4 months after giving birth, she can step back into a ring and have a physical WrestleMania match? That's a big ask. That is a really big ask. So for me, I would say there's no rush. She should come back whenever she feels ready, whenever she feels capable. 4 months to me seems too short a time. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe she will be back for WrestleMania. Maybe that'll be a miraculous, crazy return that she manages to do it in that short period of time. I would say realistically, I would suggest, and if this was Dave Meltzer, this would be news, but I would suggest maybe like SummerSlam. And who knows, maybe I'm not going to say she'll never come back, because she will come back, but we don't know what capacity she's going to come back in. Is she going to come back as a full-time WWE superstar, especially when they go back to live events? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe she comes back as a part-time star. Who knows? So there's that whole discussion about Becky Lynch returning. What is she going to do when she returns? I think that's a conversation for another time. I mean, she hasn't even given birth yet, so give her some space and give her some time. And that goes the same about what brand she's on. Is she on Raw? Is she on SmackDown? I guess she's still on Raw. But again, it doesn't matter right now. What matters is that she has a healthy and happy baby. She's happy, she's healthy, and they welcome a new addition to their family. I think that's the most important thing right now. So congratulations to them both, and there's no rush on her for a WWE return. In other news, what I want to talk about as well is there has been reported a possible reason why The Miz won the Money in the Bank contract back at Hell in a Cell. This also comes from Dave Meltzer, so I'm sure I will have something to say about that. But of course, this year's Money in the Bank match, the men's Money in the Bank match, was won by Otis back in May. I mentioned him a couple of minutes ago. However, it wasn't a happy ending for Otis, cashing in and becoming Universal Champion on SmackDown, because he ended up losing the Money in the Bank contract to The Miz back in Hell in a Cell. Now, Miz won the match after Otis's best friend and former Heavy Machinery, easy for me to say, tag team partner, Tucker, turned on Otis at the event. Now, The Miz hinted on Raw this week that he could cash in on either Randy Orton or Drew McIntyre, depending on who won the main event. The Miz even tried to rope in Bray Wyatt into his plan, but it didn't work out for The Miz. Now, on the latest edition of Wrestling Observer Radio, Dave Meltzer discussed why the Money in the Bank contract was given to The Miz by WWE and why the WWE decided to have The Miz win it from Otis at Hell in a Cell. Now, according to Meltzer, WWE put the Money in the Bank briefcase on The Miz because they aren't really interested in having the contract cashed in right now. There are plans to book both champions strongly at the moment, and they see The Miz as someone who can hold the Money in the Bank contract for the time being. Meltzer said, quote, "He better not cash in. That would be, I think it's on him because they needed a guy who would not cash it in this year, because the whole idea is they're going strong with Randy Orton or Drew, and Roman Reigns probably isn't losing the title anytime soon. But who knows, because Roman with a long title run was not the idea, believe it or not. Even though it seems so obvious it was not the idea, I have no idea who's the guy who was supposed to be the champion because they basically devalued everyone else," end quote. So, first of all, I must just say, reading that quote is so difficult because the tangents this guy goes off on when he talks is insane. He's worse than me. I have no idea, but then this idea, I mean, honestly, try and read that back. If you transcribe what Dave Meltzer says legitimately, it is so tough to read back what he says, regardless of that. Like I just said with the Becky Lynch story and the Seth Rollins timeline that Dave Meltzer said, there is no real news there. It isn't. Once again, he is confusing, Dave Meltzer is confusing his opinion with factual, accurate news. And people have started to call Dave Meltzer out on this recently, and rightfully so. He did it with Zelina Vega and her release last week. He tweeted, WWE is picking a fight with this third-party contracting thing backstage, and that became news of WWE is picking a fight with third-party contractors backstage. It's like, well, that's not news. That is his opinion. And people started to call him out on that because he's kind of, and maybe this is wider than Dave Meltzer, but people are confusing Dave Meltzer's opinion with actual news from sources. And I would always say now, and this is what I do when I do these videos, is I look at several reports. Are other people saying this, or is this just Dave Meltzer's opinion? And he confuses his opinion and perception of an incident, of a report, or whatever as backstage news. Remember back in the spring, Seth Rollins versus Rey Mysterio, I mentioned that for you a minute ago, and their eye for an eye match at Extreme Rules. I mean, I know you tried to forget it, I've tried to forget it, but it's there, it happened, guys. We can't erase history, unfortunately. And the big story from him was we're going to use CGI. They're going to use CGI in that match, and there's going to be sort of a CGI popping out of the eyeball. Remember that? Yeah, that didn't happen. That was a fake eyeball. Remember that SummerSlam was going to be on the beach or on a cruise ship? Yeah, that didn't happen as well. It was inside the ThunderDome. Again, it's opinion versus reality. It's opinion versus reality. This is what I was saying. This is what I've been saying about The Miz for weeks at this point. For me, The Miz isn't going to cash in anytime soon. I don't think. That's my opinion. It's not news. It's my opinion. In these videos, when I do news, I read the report and then I give my opinion. That's how this thing works. That's how news works. That's how opinion on news works. And I think over the years, he's just kind of got confused as to what is actual news and what is actual opinion. And it gets muddied up. And regardless when it comes back to The Miz cashing in, again, I don't think The Miz is going to cash in anytime soon. Randy Orton, when he was the WWE Champion, he just won the title. And again, I thought at the time, well, he's not going to lose it anytime soon. He did, but he lost it to Drew McIntyre. I think there was more chance of The Miz cashing in on Randy Orton than Drew McIntyre. Drew McIntyre, it feels even less likely that The Miz is going to cash in around now because Drew McIntyre is champion. He's incredibly protected. He's been incredibly protected in terms of losses and clean pinfalls for the last 12 months. I think he's lost, 3 times maybe? And on one occasion, he wasn't even pinned. Twice, he's been actually cleanly defeated. I think that was by Randy Orton. So he's incredibly protected. So I just can't see him dropping the title that quickly. The only scenario that I could see, and I've seen some people mentioning this online about Survivor Series on Sunday, perhaps I mentioned maybe Sheamus. We know a Sheamus versus Drew McIntyre feud is coming. Perhaps Sheamus costs Drew McIntyre the match against Roman Reigns on Sunday, and maybe have The Miz cash in then. Maybe have Randy Orton attack Drew McIntyre on Sunday, and The Miz cashes in then. I just don't know if I can see it. Remember, the Money in the Bank briefcase, that was won by Otis in May. I still think The Miz will cash in after WrestleMania next year. That's what I think is going to happen. Now, previously, I said that I thought he would cash in on Edge because I thought we were going to get Edge versus Randy Orton for the WWE Championship. Maybe we still will, but maybe now that won't happen because maybe Edge isn't going to become WWE Champion. Either way, The Miz has until May next year to cash in that Money in the Bank briefcase. Maybe he'll even wait until the Money in the Bank pay-per-view. Have we seen that? Have we seen someone literally wait 12 months to cash in? I think Mr. Kennedy, when he was the Money in the Bank holder, teased he was going to cash in at WrestleMania 24 when he won the championship at WrestleMania 23. Of course, we know that didn't happen. Ironically, he actually lost the Money in the Bank briefcase to Edge because Mr. Kennedy was injured at the time, but he actually wasn't injured. They thought he had a torn bicep, he had a bruised bicep. They needed someone to cash in on The Undertaker because The Undertaker was hurt. That was a crazy time. So who knows? Who knows what's going to happen with The Miz? But I don't think he's going to cash in anytime soon. But if he does, once again, it will demonstrate the change of plan that is in WWE right now. Drew McIntyre wasn't scheduled to win the WWE Championship a couple of weeks ago when he lost the championship to Randy Orton at Hell in a Cell. Yet he's the WWE Champion right now. Plans can change. Anything can happen at any point. Although when it comes to The Miz cashing in, I just think that's quite far off at this point. I am quite confident with that, but anything can happen. Anything can happen. I'm not Dave Meltzer. This is my opinion. Now, another bit of news, exciting news, I think, is that the WWE ThunderDome is moving. The WWE ThunderDome reportedly is moving to Tropicana Field. Yes, WWE is set to move the ThunderDome from the Amway Center in Orlando, Florida, to Tropicana Field in St. Petersburg, Florida. This is according to a report by eWrestling News. Now, the report added that WWE's residency at the venue is expected to last for a while, especially since Major League Baseball isn't expected to return until early 2021. Now, Tropicana Field hosts games for the Tampa Bay Rays, but as noted before, WWE had signed a short-term contract extension with the Amway Center through November, so it looks like WWE, the ThunderDome, is going to be moving to Tropicana Field in December. Now, eWrestling News also added that WWE is expected to move to this arena by early December, like I said, with the NBA scheduled to resume and hockey is scheduled to resume in December. The Amway Center is tied up, hosting home games for the Orlando Magic and the Orlando Solar Bears. Therefore, they can't stay in the Amway Center much longer because it's needed for its regular hosting duties. So this move from the Amway Center was always expected in December, but now we actually have a venue in Tropicana Field as to where the WWE ThunderDome is going to be moving next. Now, previously, WrestleVotes on Twitter, a very reputable source, had reported that WWE was scheduled to leave the Amway Center on November 24 and was considering other venues in North Carolina, Illinois, and Texas. However, WWE has decided to stay put in the state of Florida. This is no surprise. WWE has strong links with the Florida governor, Ron DeSantis, making it clear. He made it very, very clear recently he has no plans to shut down. He's actually encouraging fans back to pack sports stadiums despite the ongoing pandemic. He said that sporting teams in Florida, if they want, can have a full capacity stadium or arena, which is insane. I've done a video about that. It's absolutely nuts, but that's what he's saying. So it's not surprising WWE is staying in Florida. It really isn't, considering, like I said, they have strong links to that governor. I think they've paid a substantial amount of money to his re-election campaign in Florida. He was the same governor that mandated WWE was an essential business back when the pandemic was really starting to hit back in March and April. That's why WWE was allowed to stay open and produce all of those shows in May and in April and all that kind of stuff, because they greased the Florida governor's pocket. And people will say, well, that's not the case. That is exactly the case. When is WWE an essential business? They're an entertainment company. So, it's no surprise they're staying in Florida, because who knows what can happen. When you go to a different state, they might shut down. So they know where their bread is buttered when it comes to Florida. That's why they're staying there. Now, the Tropicana field was established in 1990 and was originally known as the Florida Suncoast Dome. But ironically, this is quite interesting, in 1993, the Tampa Bay Lightning moved to the stadium, and the name of the stadium was actually changed to the ThunderDome. So the WWE ThunderDome might be moving to what was previously the ThunderDome. Now, it's quite interesting with this move because the Tropicana field actually has a capacity of 40,000. Now, we're not going to get 40,000 fans in there. That isn't going to happen. But it's incredibly interesting to see what they will do with the ThunderDome in this larger stadium-like setting. I think everyone has been very impressed with what WWE's been able to do with the ThunderDome in an arena at the Amway Center. It's been incredibly impressive, but I think it's going to look even more grander and even bigger. They can do much bigger stuff and much more grand entrances in a stadium environment. I think that's going to be really interesting. And when it comes to WWE in stadiums, you can criticize them as much as you want. They know how to do a stadium show. WWE really does know how to do a stadium show. I've always really liked the look of the Royal Rumble shows in the last couple of years at these baseball stadiums. I actually love that's become a thing and become a tradition in WWE. I think those Royal Rumble shows actually look great in those baseball stadiums. I don't know what it's like actually being in attendance. You can, if you've been to a Royal Rumble in any of the baseball stadiums over the last few years, you can let me know. Is it easy to see? What's the atmosphere like in there? But I really like that's become kind of a Royal Rumble tradition. It looks different. I like, especially in the Royal Rumble match, that the superstars come out of the dugout. I like the long walk that they do at these baseball stadiums. I think it looks great. And on top of that, I think all of it looks great. Given that they're back at a stadium, an outdoor stadium, I think it is, or regardless, a big open air stadium, it does obviously open up the possibility of bringing fans back to WWE events. Obviously, they're going to turn it into the ThunderDome. I think they're going to keep the virtual fan element in there when it comes to these shows. But like they've done with the Capitol Wrestling Center in NXT at the WWE Performance Center, they can bring back fans plus the virtual fans, actual real live paying fans in attendance, plus the virtual fans in attendance at the Tropicana field. So it's an open air stadium, which allows social distancing. It allows purchase of tickets in pods like they do at Daly's Place in Jacksonville, Florida. So I think WWE will look to bring fans back in. I know a lot of people are saying WWE will go back to bringing back fans specifically for WrestleMania, but even if it was at 10% capacity in a 40,000 stadium, you could get 4,000 fans in there. WWE is not going to turn down money. They never have. WWE is driven by money. That's what WWE and Vince McMahon are all about. It's all about that. It's all about that. It's all about the money. So if they can find a way to get money and bring fans back to Tropicana Field, then of course they're going to do it. Now, obviously, you have to question the safety element of there. Is it safe? What's the situation like when it comes to Florida and cases and testing and all that kind of stuff? Now, I'm not an expert on this stuff. I'm really not. I don't profess to be. I'm not Dave Meltzer. But I've seen some NFL games when I watch some of the NFL with people in attendance. I've seen over here in Europe, we've seen soccer games, not in the United Kingdom, but across Europe, we've seen soccer games in Europe that have socially distant fans in attendance. This has always been my mentality when it comes to this. If you can do it safely, that's fine. I do question the people that actually attend these events. Is it worth the risk? Is it worth the risk? We know it's a fact. Cases are still increasing. We know it's a fact. Deaths are still increasing across the world. This isn't just in the US. It's across Europe. It's over here in the UK. Over here in the UK, we're in a second lockdown right now. So I do question, would you want to go to these events? Is it worth the risk? Like I said, and this isn't a WWE thing, by the way. I've said the same with AEW. Is it worth the risk of going to these events? I don't know. I really don't know. I wouldn't want to go. I wouldn't want to risk it. I just wouldn't. But obviously, everyone's seen it in the news. We have this news about multiple vaccines right now, the effectiveness of that. When is that going to be rolled out? We're hearing things that it could be rolled out in, some people say before Christmas, some people are saying April of next year, some people are saying before that. I don't know, but it is coming. So maybe WWE holds off until then. Maybe WWE goes, actually, this vaccine looks like it's going to be widespread by April time. That's WrestleMania time. Maybe we just hold out when it comes to live fans in attendance until then. I don't know. But in terms of the ThunderDome moving, I think a change of setting and, to be honest, almost upgrading the ThunderDome. That's what I think it would do. I think the ThunderDome in a bigger setting would look even better. So I think a change of setting looks good, and upgrading the ThunderDome isn't a bad thing at all. We've had the ThunderDome since August now, so August, September, October, November, December. We've nearly had it 6 months, like 5 months, 6 months. I think it still looks great, but it's like when you had the shows at the Performance Center, eventually you do need the change of setting. It does become samey. So a change of setting and upgrading what they have isn't a bad thing at all, especially as we're heading into the biggest time of the year for WWE. Of course, around December, Christmas time, WWE television is just incredibly dull because nothing's going on. But as we head into January, February, March and April, WrestleMania season, Royal Rumble season, if they're in that version of the ThunderDome, that's really exciting. As we head into the biggest time of the year, you need to go bigger and better. And it looks like they're doing that with the ThunderDome. So I'm excited for that. I really, really am. And finally, what I want to talk about today is a possible reason why Drew McIntyre beat Randy Orton on Monday Night Raw to become WWE Champion. Now, I'm sure you've seen, we actually did a video on it yesterday, so I don't want to chew my food twice when it comes to this one, but the main event of Raw this week saw Drew McIntyre beat Randy Orton to win back the WWE Championship, become WWE Champion for the second time in his career. Drew McIntyre will now go on to face WWE Universal Champion Roman Reigns at Survivor Series on Sunday. Now, McIntyre had appeared on SmackDown last week, interrupting Roman Reigns early on in the show before defeating Jey Uso in the main event. Now, once again, that guy again, Dave Meltzer, addressed the situation between Drew McIntyre and Randy Orton on the Wrestling Observer Radio. Get ready for this. Meltzer was asked by why WWE had Orton beat McIntyre at Hell in a Cell only for Drew to win the title back on Raw last night. He said, quote, because they've got nothing going on, and they'd already done a bunch of Randy Orton versus Drew McIntyre matches, but Drew McIntyre kept winning, and to keep it going, they had Randy Orton win one, so they did. Dave Meltzer also addressed why WWE had chosen McIntyre to win the WWE Championship on Raw instead of holding off until the pay-per-view. Meltzer said WWE probably wanted there you go, it's opinion, wanted a babyface versus heel dynamic for Survivor Series, which is why they preferred to have Drew McIntyre face Roman Reigns at the upcoming pay-per-view. Meltzer said, quote, but in the end, yeah, you could have held off until the pay-per-view, but I guess they wanted a babyface heel dynamic in this match. I mean, Roman Reigns and Randy Orton would have been such a nothing match. I mean, really, not even that it's been done before. I know technically as a wrestling match it would have been fine. They're both good wrestlers, but it's two heels. The eventual thing would be that everyone would cheer Roman Reigns, and they're not really looking for that this week. Roman Reigns and Drew McIntyre is kind of like the battle of the top dog in each brand. Drew has been one of the top since WrestleMania, since the Rumble really. He has been pushed as the top guy on one side, and Roman Reigns just destroyed everyone on the other side. So again, like I said, this is why I brought this one up, because go back and watch the video yesterday that I did on this. That's exactly what I said. That is exactly what I said. I mentioned about the heel versus babyface dynamic. Again, it's not really news from Dave Meltzer, it's opinion. He said, probably. That's not news. Where is the source there? Where is the source? There isn't any. And I'm not going to be like Bruce Pritchard or Eric Bischoff going, reveal your sources, because that's not how journalism works. But at least get a source. Don't just guess. And that is such guesswork from Dave Meltzer there. It's not news, it's opinion. That's why when we do the news here, like I said, we read the report, I give my opinion. Meltzer states his opinion like it's news. It's craziness. It's craziness. Nevertheless, as I mentioned yesterday, plans have obviously changed. It's incredibly obvious because you wouldn't just change the WWE Championship on the Go Home episode to Survivor Series. Plans have changed. It happens every year. I don't know if I necessarily agree with Dave Meltzer's opinion on the babyface heel dynamic. I think they just did it because it's the bigger match. It's the better match. They didn't have a problem with a heel dynamic when it was Brock Lesnar versus Daniel Bryan a couple of years ago. I don't think they care that much for that. Obviously, maybe they changed it because of that dynamic with Jinder Mahal versus Brock Lesnar in 2017. Again, I think they changed it just because they got a better match, a bigger match. Brock Lesnar versus AJ Styles is much bigger than Brock Lesnar versus Jinder Mahal. It's the same. It's the same. I think they did the same with Brock Lesnar versus Daniel Bryan because we'd seen Brock Lesnar versus AJ Styles the year prior. That's the reason there. I don't think it's necessarily a babyface versus heel dynamic. A bit like Meltzer said there, credit to him. He said that it's because you've got the two top guys in each brand. I think that's the reason. It's the bigger match, it's the better match. It's harder to predict. It makes you want to watch Survivor Series much more on Sunday. I'm certainly more excited for that main event between Drew McIntyre and Roman Reigns because of that. So it's absolutely worked. But again, it's not news, it's opinion. As I mentioned at the end of every video, this is just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on all of these WWE news stories today? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll be sure to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys and chatting about WWE here on the channel. So be sure to leave a comment below and I'll be sure to respond. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button. It really does help us out here on YouTube, get up the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today, and I'll speak with you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.